On this episode of Geek Dad Life, we're going to do a live discussion on the Ghostbusters Afterlife score. All right, so welcome to Geek Dad Life. It's your host, Jay Glatfelter here, and this is the first episode of Geek Dad Live, where we're going to... I've got a channel going here. I got it streaming. Hold on. There we go. Turn it off. All right. So first, with the Geek Dad Live, we're going to have a special guest on the show to discuss it. So I'm going to plus him in now. He's a very good friend for many years from my podcasting on Lost Days, and he is he's a fan, a connoisseur of a lot of things, but he's also probably the one person I know in this world that is a huge motion picture score fan. And nonetheless, got to bring him out. It's Ralph. Ralph, welcome to the show.
Hey, how's it going? I didn't know I was going to pop up in the middle. I was going to remind me to tell you something after we're done recording.
I kind of wung it because I was waiting for you to jump on. I was like, whoa, maybe I'll just like press him in like, you know, he's the guest and I'm bringing him in from backstage. Hey, that's next time I'm gonna make sure I have like a.
Well, I was gonna let you know something about your show that needs to be fixed.
Oh, what needs to be fixed?
And it should have been fixed like months.
Well, just let me know. You tell me. It's live TV. It's live YouTube.
Your end credit says 2019.
Oh man. That's fair. You caught me. I'm a copy and paster.
I keep writing 2019 on all my podcasts.
Yes,
sorry,
for
I'm drinking
those that are watching it right now that don't know who Ralph is, if there are people that watch the channel that aren't even aware of the podcast that I've podcasting or been a part of for 15 years. Ralph, why don't you tell the people, you know, who you are and why are you important?
I started podcasting about maybe a year and a half after you guys started up. We both listened to a show called Make Your Own Kind of Music with Scott and Steve. It was a podcast, another one of those lost podcasts. And me and my friend Ben kind of took that over when Dylan left that show. So yeah, ever since then, I've been podcasting. I have several shows and do several things. And it's like a 15-year relationship? Something like that?
It'll be 15 years in October. And, you know, one of the things that, I mean, really, I think qualifies you for this discussion. I mean, there's a lot of things about this discussion. But, you know, you are a score connoisseur. Like the copies that I have of Ghostbusters, the original score, and the Ghostbusters 2 score, I got from you.
Right.
You managed to get those when they were released back in the mid 2000s, right?
Something like that. I think at the time, this is where we were technology wise, was I had to use like AIM or some sort of like chat.
Yep.
To send you over files one at a time. And I think the soundtrack has something like 20 files. And I just sat there just uploading file after file after file. Now I could send you it no problem. I could just Dropbox it in like 5 minutes.
Yeah, people don't understand how much better the internet is these days. Like when you post a podcast, it would take like 7 hours to upload.
But the thing is, there's a film score soundtrack label, and I think it has to do with Universal. I'm not exactly sure, which doesn't make sense for this release. But Verisarabande, I'm not sure how to pronounce it. They put out limited edition runs. So I probably gave you a copy of Heartbeeps, John Williams score.
Yeah, you did.
And that was part of that CD clip. They only made something like 1,000 of them. And so I got that. And then when I saw Ghostbusters, I got that too. And it was like the only way I can get it to you was ripping the CD and then sending the files one at a time.
Which probably isn't totally legal, but whatever.
I mean, it's what is that? When it's been too long, where they can't prosecute you anymore.
Yeah,
I can't think of it.
Yeah, there's a word there, and I'm thinking of it too now. But I have like 7 copies of the soundtrack on vinyl, like the vintage. If I find a vintage Ghostbusters soundtrack,
right,
I pick it up because usually $5, and I have a problem. I clearly have a problem.
Right. We used to have the Columbia House subscription, and I would always get soundtracks. And I remember having Ghostbusters soundtrack on tape. That's long gone. I don't know what happened to that, but
my tape. I had the single, the Ghostbusters single on vinyl. Kid, like that was my first copy of the Ghostbusters, song. I remember having that, and then I got the tape, the soundtrack tape. And then my first CD I ever bought was the Ghostbusters 2 soundtrack, featuring some hot tracks like Bobby Brown's "We're on," I believe is the main track from that. But
yeah,
a great rendition.
Flesh and Blood, Boingo Boingo.
Yes. So Danny Elfman has an appearance on that soundtrack, right? So
right.
And
which I was okay. So I was rewatching Ghostbusters 2 recently.
Yeah,
and it's the music that they're listening to while they're hanging out in the eating. Not when they're eating dinner.
No, it's when
it's all the Ghostbusters hanging out together.
Yep.
In the firehouse.
Yep. Well, it's Harold Ramis's Egon Spengler and Dan Aykroyd's Ray Stantz. They're just like sitting talking, and while the ooze they're testing the ooze.
Right.
And I believe they get the call to go
right.
to the apartment or something like that.
And then the thing is, in Ghostbusters 1, when they're having dinner, they're listening to Thompson Twins.
Yes,
and Oingo Boingo and Thompson Twins are like 2 of my all-time favorite bands ever. So
really,
I have the same taste in music as the Ghostbusters. We'll have to see what they listen to in the new one, but it's probably not going to be Jane's Addiction or Beck. Who knows? Maybe.
Who knows? I mean, it's Jason Reitman, and again, where I really wanted to dig in with you, when talking about this, is how familiar are you with Jason Reitman's scores, and how much of that do you think is going to influence this versus how much is Ghostbusters going to influence it, and like the soundtracks for Ghostbusters 1 and Ghostbusters 2? Because the reason like I even wanted to have this discussion is, and I'll share it here on the screen. I'm going to share an application window here on Jason Reitman's Instagram. He posted this picture of essentially it looks like a page of the score, and it's Rob Simonson, and I have no idea who this guy is. So I
have no idea, and I probably should have looked him up, but I didn't.
I did, and there's honestly not that many credits to his name. So he's kind of an unknown, which I find surprising for what seems to be a pretty big, movie and a pretty big score.
Right.
But his big credits here, he was a composer on the Dollhouse TV show. He did Tully. He's doing the Stargirl sound or score. But really, 500 Days of Summer, he co-composed with Michael Dana. Life of Pi, he did additional music. So like nothing big. So I find that interesting for this composer.
I mean, you got to think at the time, like say when The Incredibles came out, that was Michael Giacchino's first film score for a huge, big deal Pixar movie. So there's these guys are out there composing video games, TV shows, and stuff, and it doesn't take much for them to get hired on a movie. It could just be something where maybe Jason Reitman was a fan of Dollhouse. Maybe there's something that he heard that reminded him of probably Elmer Bernstein's original Ghostbuster score.
Mm-hmm.
Something stylistically that matches that.
Yep.
I feel like Jason Reitman, especially with the first teaser, really wants to hit hard on the nostalgia
Yes.
of the Ghostbusters. And so in that first teaser, he played music from Elmer Bernstein.
Yep.
And the Elmer Bernstein score is incredible.
Yeah.
It may be my favorite score to a comedy of all time.
Yep.
I'm assuming for you it's the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny because Elmer Bernstein did.
It struck a perfect tone of like, spooky and funny, and like it was perfect, like in terms of finding that balance.
Right. And you know what's funny is the Ghostbusters theme that he did is kind of comedic,
Mm-hmm.
which I'm not a real big fan of. I'm not a fan of comedic music and comedies.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like if you play it straight, it makes the comedy stand out more.
Yep.
But that Ghostbusters theme works so well. Elmer Bernstein did also for Reitman before he did Ghostbusters. He did Meatballs and Stripes.
Yep.
And there's something similar to the theme for Tripper in. Oh, now I'm getting the names mixed up. Is it Trippers and Meatballs? What's his?
That doesn't sound like a track from Stripes.
I'm trying to think of his name from Stripes, and I just watched it. But Bill Murray's theme in Stripes is very,
yes,
I would say a little bit similar to the Ghostbusters theme. Yeah, it's a very sort of,
and I can't. I would love to play these tracks, but YouTube is so strict with playing.
Yeah,
I put like a second of it, they would like shut this video
down. Winger is his character.
Yes, Winger, yes.
And it's kind of a sort of a hangdog sort of tune, where it's kind of a jazzy, like down on his luck sort of number. And there's something similar to that with the Ghostbusters, which I like because it really plays up back there's regular guys.
Yep.
There's nothing flashy about that until they show up in the hotel. That's when they get a full sort of like grand theme. One of the things that that kind of sucks is after I believe it was Three Amigos, Elmer Bernstein kind of said, "I'm done with comedies. I'm doing all these comedies. I'm kind of done with it." So by the time Ghostbusters 2 came around, he didn't do the score. And I watched Ghostbusters 2, I think last week or a week before. I think I texted you.
Yeah. We talked.
And I love that movie. My only problem with that movie is the score. And I think the score really knocks that movie down.
Yeah, completely.
And I'm sure there's some sort of cut out there where someone dropped in Bernstein's score.
We talked about it. I was like, I would love a fan edit that just put in the Elmer Bernstein score, because it's almost off-putting the score. And no offense, I can't remember who did the score.
Randy Edelman.
That's right. No offense to him and the work that he did. It was an impossible task. But it's
right.
We had everybody come back for that film, like in terms of actors, writers, directors, producers. But the one thing you didn't have was Elmer Bernstein on the score. And so you're saying he was kind of done with comedy. Is that why he did Ghostbusters 2, or did they just forego him?
That's what I understand.
Interesting.
Yeah. And it's there's some stuff by Randy Edelman that I like. He does some more. He has two types of scores that he does. He scores a very specific way for dramas and a very specific way for comedies. Some dramas that he did that I really like are Dragonheart. If you ever heard the music from Dragonheart, it played in like every trailer in 1998. And then
like Henry as the dragon or something. Okay.
Yeah, with Dennis Quaid.
Yes.
And then Dragon, the Bruce Lee story, he also did. And that's another score that you've heard in every trailer from 1998. Fantastic scores. Comedy wise, the one that comes to the top of my head is Billy Madison, which
Okay.
sounds a lot like the Ghostbusters 2 soundtrack. A lot of synth
Yeah.
and a lot of kind of cartooning.
Yeah, and that's my problem with it. It's just the sense it makes it kind of dates it. Where
Right.
the Bernstein score is kind of timeless, where you kind of it's not really tied into the theme of the day, except for the main ghost, like not the Ghostbusters theme, but that one that kind of cut out. You kind of get a sample of it in when they're going on, was it the Brooklyn Bridge?
Right. Well, Elmer Bernstein used synthesizers and electronics to make weird sounds.
Yeah.
Randy Edelman was using synthesizers and electronics to substitute for like violins or strings or horns.
Yep.
So that's the part I don't like about it. What Elmer Bernstein did was use it kind of like a theremin to make stuff sound like spooky, sort of classic ghost haunted house type music.
Was it, I pronounced the Odiness Martinat, I believe is what it's called. I think it's what it's called, Odiness Martinat, but it's like a theremin, but you have more controls. I think you have keys while you do have a slide.
Oh, is that what I think that's what they use for Good Vibrations in?
Yes, it's what they use in Good Vibrations. Radiohead used it in Pyramid Song and a couple other songs.
Okay.
Odes or Odiness Martinat, I believe is what it's called.
So anyway, yeah, the scores, and then the 2016 score, I saw the movie twice. I liked it for what it was, kind of just it didn't feel like the original Ghostbusters.
Yeah,
obviously.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be upset if Jason Reitman didn't include that somehow in his thing. Like, from what I've seen in the trailers, it appears to be some sort of dimensional portal showing up in this small town.
Yep.
Whether that's where the containment center was or not, seems like that would be the case.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
But I feel like if they're able to open up that dimensional wormhole or whatever, you can see different Ghostbusters from different dimensions. And I think a nod to 2016 to honor that and not just completely sweep it under the rug and still make that Ghostbusters canon, would be a cool idea.
Well, Sony nailed it with Into the Spider-Verse, where they kind of were able to bring in all of these. And in the comics, I know they have done a big crossover where they have the real Ghostbusters, that universe, the movie universe, first movie universe, and the 2016 universe, and they all kind of team up together because I think they call it the interdimensional cross rip or something like that. And, so I think there's absolutely room to do it, because I do agree they shouldn't.
There's a Ninja Turtles cartoon, and it came out like in 2000, where they showed like all the different versions of the Ninja Turtles in the different dimensions. Yeah. How great would it be if they had something similar where you could see Ghostbusters from different dimensions attacking the same portal, and they had cast live action people that look just like the real Ghostbusters animated series.
Yes. Or
like put them in like
have them be animated. Like that's just the way it looks in that universe or something.
Yeah, go for it.
But
I think that would be cool to see like an Egon with the big glasses and the blonde hair.
Real Ghostbusters is having a bit of a moment because they're re-releasing those original toys, which is really cool, which I've talked about a lot in this show. But then because of those toys being re-released, the original showrunner of the real Ghostbusters, J. Michael Straczynski, who's famous for many other things like Babylon 5 and big comic book writer and whatnot, he sent a tweet to Jason Reitman saying, with the popularity in Ghostbusters and real Ghostbusters, do we need to bring this back? Like, I'm game or I'm in. So like, that would be really cool if like J. Michael Straczynski came back and then like brought back real Ghostbusters, because that TV series it really holds up out of all the stuff we were fed as children in the 80s. Like, I feel like that one I know I'm
Right.
a biased fan, but I feel like that one does hold up compared to like when I watch Ninja Turtles or Transformers or whatever that don't
Right.
hold up as well.
Right. I mean, I'd be down for it. I only watched maybe a handful of episodes of the real Ghostbusters, but I was always fascinated by it.
It's what J. Michael Straczynski did really well is he pulled from like the occult and he pulled from, you know, all of these things that other shows like Supernatural and so even Sabrina, Johnny Cash and Sabrina, like all are pulling from as well now. And they did it in the 80s for a kids TV show. Like they talk,
Right.
you know, the Collect Call of Cthulhu, where they go into the cult of Cthulhu and actually face off against Cthulhu at the end of the episode, or like Boogeyman Cummins, Sandman, like there's just Sam Hain. Like there's just so many a good rogues gallery from the real Ghostbusters that would be cool to tap into, whatever. Who knows how successful this movie is, but just it's kind of neat to see the resurgence in all things Ghostbusters, same way that 2016 had, because we got, you know, High CX Cooler back.
Right.
There's a lot of fun things with the 2016 movie, but I feel like to your point, the greatest sin that the 2016 movie made to me is they kind of didn't acknowledge the other universe. Like it could have been cool to kind of make a multi-universe kind of thing.
And I feel like they were so close to doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Like they had the option. They were really close to doing that, especially with like there was a post-credit sequence.
Mm-hmm.
I think where they get a
like that.
Yeah, they mentioned Gozer or somebody.
Yep.
But that's what I'm saying. If you can tie that into this, just a nod, just so that it exists.
Yeah.
I don't know how often you watch it, but it's I feel like sweeping it under the rug would be a wrong way to go.
Yep. I agree. John Norton posted, and I'll show it here, in talking about, I think earlier on I asked like Jason Reitman what's his style, but Jason Reitman did Juno, which has such an iconic specific sound to it. So I'm sure he's interested / involved. I'm
trying to think of the stuff that the movies I've seen that he's done. I've seen Juno, and I've seen Thank You for Smoking.
Mm-hmm.
And then he had a film early on that I want to say that I saw, but I'm not super familiar with his work. But the movie, I'm excited for the movie.
Thank You for Smoking, Juno, Up in the Air, Young Adults are kind of his big ones.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't seen. I only saw the first two you mentioned. Yeah, I'm. It's hard to say because when Ghostbusters came out, huge deal. Saw it in the theater. Saw Ghostbusters 2 twice in the theater, which was rare because that was 89.
Yep.
And everything came out in 89. 89 was a huge year. Yep. I saw everything that year, and I watched Ghostbusters twice in 2 days. But after that, after Ghostbusters 2. I started high school in 91, and so I kind of stopped getting into Ghostbusters. There was really nothing I might have been just a little too old to watch the show.
Well, the show was done. The show was done in 91.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So like it did fall off the face of the earth.
Yeah.
But that was back when IP would go away and you just wouldn't see it, like Star Wars.
Yeah.
Like 10 years, So
and that's the thing with Star Wars. I was still always into Star Wars. Yeah. Anything I could get my hands on. I hate reading. I'm not a reader, but I got those Timothy Zahn books. Yeah. The X-Wing flight simulator. I need that to make a comeback. I love that game. Somewhere in a landfill is all my medals that I got for fighting for the rebellion.
Well, I mean, with the with Arcade 1-Up, they did that amazing Star Wars Atari game.
I know. You've been to my place. I don't really have room for stuff like that.
You could fit it in your room there. Like back there where all your VHS tapes, I see them right there.
Oh, I got to get rid of those.
Out and then put it right there.
I got to get rid of those. There's too many. Oh my gosh. And then, I don't know what I'm going to do with those. The last time we talked about something I had in the works.
Yes. Yes.
That might be going by the wayside because it might be more trouble than it's worth. I'm thinking of doing some. I don't know. I keep saying this stuff that I'm going to do, and then I've got no time to do any of it. But
I'll ask this.
yeah,
Because you're wearing an NCOM hat right now. If
yeah.
one up does the Tron, like makes a Tron, are you getting it?
I mean, if they did, it would have to be both games, right? It'd have to be Tron and Discotron.
Why not? It's pretty easy to do.
It's the same. It's the same control scheme.
The disc, the little.
I think they're swapped
different
on the machines.
Which so that I believe the player can jump between the discs on Discotron or the little pedestals or whatever.
Yeah, the lifting one.
Yeah, so
that's for aiming up and down.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. So if the platforms start going like this,
yeah,
and so you have to aim down to hit the guide. So that's where that came in. I love those games.
Horribly for my first episode, they had a Discotron at that arcade, and I tried to play it with like one hand while holding up the camera because
you can't.
Early on, I still don't really have that much equipment to make it very professional, but I try my best.
Right. Do you think that I've been watching Geek Dag Life since the beginning, and it's funny how your page is kind of turned into what my page turned into. So my Patreon page, the Casino Skunk Secret Society, there was so much Star Wars coming, and there's so much new Star Wars that for like months, that's all I was doing. And now I'm watching Geek Dad Life, and it's turned into like this Ghostbusters podcast or this Ghostbusters show, which is fine. I watch all of them, but I think it's hilarious. I think it's hilarious that right after you started your show, like all this Ghostbuster stuff just started flying at you.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting because the show, it will always be just kind of like what I'm interested in, what's happening,
right
now. And there is so much Star Wars stuff, and it's so that just kind of so much
Ghostbusters.
That's what it'll be for the moment. I do have a couple other not Ghostbusters related videos on the horizon. There's this miniaturized Pac-Man game that I want to get and do a review of, and then I also got a new Superman figure that I wanted to review, which you can kind of see.
Oh, cool.
There. Or I should have just looked at the camera. A Chris Reeve 6-inch Superman, which I thought was really neat.
Oh, cool.
That I picked up.
Yeah, I'm
very Ghostbusters heavy. So for maybe people are like, enough with the Ghostbusters already. But how do I not? It's my favorite thing ever.
Yeah, that's the thing is I was telling people on the Patreon, I'm like, hey, listen, if you're not into Star Wars, I apologize, but it's kind of because it was like Mandalorian and Rise of Skywalker at the same time.
Yeah,
and then like Galaxy's Edge kind of happened, and I still haven't talked about Rise of the Resistance. But I will be in the next couple weeks.
That's ride in the history of rides, right? I believe.
Have you been on it?
I have not. I haven't been to Disneyland in forever. And
well, I'm gonna have a discussion with my friend Alex on my podcast about it. We're gonna go in depth. I went on it on Sunday with him. This was the third time I went on it, and I mean, like, how things get hyped up.
Mm-hmm.
And you start getting excited, and then by the time you see it, you're like, yeah, that was all right. Your hype level can be through the roof, and it won't prepare you for this.
That's insane.
So my suggestion to anyone out there wanting to go on it or are interested in it, don't look at any ride-throughs. Don't look at any ride-through videos or anything like that. Just go on it, especially if you're a Star Wars fan. If you're a fan of like Disney attractions, they throw everything in it. Everything but the kitchen sink is in that attraction. Like 70 years of Imagineering. Every trick in the book is on display, and it's crazy.
I can't wait. Like, we're going to Disney World in November.
Right.
So like I'm saving up so that because Zach and Alex really want to do the lightsaber thing. So I'm saving up so we can all do the lightsaber.
All right.
Like break the bank. And then they all wanted the droids too, which is also like $100 a pop. So like literally, Like the Star Wars land is gonna like darn near bankrupt me, but it'll be worth it. It'll be worth it in the end.
Right. So you were? Did you?
For this channel.
Yeah. Did you? You're a musician. You could read sheet music.
Yeah.
Did you go through? Did you actually go through and try to play what was posted?
I played it, and I was going to record it, but there honestly wasn't that much there, other than the first 2 notes, or the first 3 notes, are echoing the da 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 da, but it's the
Okay.
So that is da 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 is the Ghostbusters, but other than that, it kind of goes on its own. It's like da 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 da. So it's kind of like the last note that you see there, if you're looking at the sheet music, is kind of a dissonant note. So it does kind of have or evoke more of the Bernstein feel, which was playful but also kind of spooky and eerie.
Yeah.
So it does have me hopeful and excited, and looking at, they have worked together. I guess he did Tully, and Jason Reitman directed Tully. So they have a familiarity with each other, which usually is how it goes. Usually directors have their composers that they like to go with. So that makes sense.
And when does the movie come out?
It comes out July 10th.
So it comes out July. Okay. All right, because I was all getting amped up for James Bond, and then it got pushed to November, which is fine. Bond belongs in November to begin with, but I was ready to go. I watched like 4 Bond movies in the last 5 days.
Yep.
Or the 5 days prior to them announcing. But I was all ready to go, and then they pushed that back. So
yeah, it was interesting watching SNL this weekend with Daniel Craig.
Yeah.
Obviously they set that up probably like a year ago or something, and
right.
like push it. And so it's just kind of funny how that all worked out.
Yeah, it's had nothing to promote.
Yeah, basically. But it was a fun Bond clip.
Yeah. So what's is there, we talked before on my podcast, and you were, or it might have been yours. No, I don't know. We're always talking on podcasts, but you brought up the toys.
Yep.
And pretty much it seems like everything that you mentioned as far as rumors came true, and then some.
Yeah.
Is there more stuff on the horizon that you've heard? Any rumblings of anything? I'm assuming Ecto Cooler is going to come back.
Yep.
I mean,
I did a video on it back in December because, and I'm sure you remember, we both follow a person that I've followed for almost 20 years, which is insane in the internet. Yeah. But Matt from Dinosaur Dracula, I think he posted that there was like a Twitter account that opened up and posted this picture of like new Ecto Cooler, and not only was there the original Ecto Cooler, there was 2 other flavors.
It's like a strawberry or something, and
it was like a blue and a red. I'd have to go back to the video to remember what it was called, but it was like Big Apple, and then
that's right,
blueberry, I believe, like was the blue, like that. But it looked really legit, like it looked super legit. But then once people started poking, and that was the first time we saw Ghostbusters Afterlife was on that image, or something that looked official, that it was called Ghostbusters Afterlife.
Yeah. So whoever made that somehow knew.
Yeah. And that's where it seems like it's absolutely going to happen, because it looked really legit.
Yeah.
And the fact that they knew the movie before anybody else did. So I'll be really pumped if they do it. They should do it. I don't know why they wouldn't do it. Coca-Cola's had a pretty good run of like special drink tie-ins. They did an awesome one with Stranger Things over the summer where they brought back new Coke. So I absolutely could see, or I almost 100% think they're going to be bringing back Ecto Cooler. But the fact that that image that showed Slimer on it, which was the one thing that if you had to criticize, and I have the box right here, it's in background for some of my shots, is there is no Slimer on the box like there was on the original Ecto Cooler.
Which is some sort of law, right? You can't
put
cartoon characters on a...
But I gotta call BS on it because my son loves Paw Patrol Capri Suns, and there's Paw Patrol.
Okay.
But I don't know. They need to do it. They need to put Slimer on the box. But even if they don't, I don't care. It's just cool to have Ecto Cooler because at this point, this drink expired in March of 2017, so I probably couldn't drink it.
Probably Matt would drink it.
Matt would drink it, but I'm not Matt.
You know, I was this close to getting him on my show.
No way.
Yeah, I reached out to him to do a Mandalorian episode, and he almost did, and he was like, he just he didn't, and the reasoning why is totally valid, but I think I'm going to convince him one of these days to come on the podcast.
That would be awesome. I mean, he'd be a tough get because he seems like a bit of a recluse. Like doesn't.
He's comfortable with talking with Jay.
Yep.
On the purple stuff.
Yep.
So it's a little tough. So, but I'm gonna make it happen. I'm sure I gotta.
Yeah, I wonder if it because he is because I've followed him for a long time. I've watched his video. I've read his stuff for a long time. He is the most relaxed with Jay on the Sexy Armpit that I've ever heard him or like content before. Like it's the most relaxed version of Matt.
Right.
So it'd be interesting him being on your show if he would like be loose or if he'd be more.
I don't know.
Pauses, which I also find really hilarious. Like when he does his videos, just kind of does those weird, awkward pauses.
I
don't know. It'd be interesting.
We'll see.
If you do it, that'd be a big get. I would be. So because I think he made an article about Ecto Cooler in 2000. I think maybe 2000 or 2001. And I was big in the Ghostbuster community back then. I started a toy website. Was my first like website I ever made was for Ghostbusters toys. And he made a post about Ecto Cooler. So the Ghostbusters community was like, oh man, we gotta check this out. X Entertainment did a post about Ecto Cooler. So he's been a dear person in the Ghostbusters community for a long time at this point.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think if so you're almost 100% sure that this score is going to be Elmer Bernstein influenced?
I mean, who knows? Who knows? The way that Jason Reitman's sort of embraced the originals, especially with that teaser trailer. Yeah. That teaser trailer, if you got any sort of goosebumps from it, it's because of the music.
Yeah.
It's absolutely 100% because of the music.
I was like, oh,
that's all. Yeah, that's all that's all you need. It just hits you. It's similar to when I watched Force Awakens the first time. You don't see any of the old characters until halfway through or whatever. Mm-hmm. And the music that John Williams chooses, I mean, he has the main theme for Star Wars, which is Luke Skywalker's theme. Mm-hmm. He plays that at the beginning, like every other Star Wars movie.
Yep.
And then everything else is all new music up until you see the reveal of the Millennium Falcon. Mm-hmm. And that's your first glimpse into the Rebel theme.
Yep.
And like that quick bit of theme. Yeah. So that quick theme with that shot with the reveal of the Millennium Falcon, it like punches you. It punches you hard. And it is what, like any movie that you enjoy that you've watched a million times, if you listen to the score album,
mm-hmm.
you'll be able to start quoting lines as you're listening to the music.
Yep.
Like, for whatever reason, Ray, call it fate, call it. Yeah. Like when that music hits in the second trailer, I believe,
mm-hmm.
They use that music and it almost sounds like lyrics to a song.
Yeah. True.
But that's the thing is like he's using those music choices because he's trying to hit a nerve. And we've all, any Ghostbusters fans, whether you pay attention to film scores or not, it's gonna hit you. We went and saw Jojo Rabbit in the theaters, and we're talking me and my wife were talking about the score.
Mhm.
And Giacchino's score, there's not really pronounced. You don't really, there's not like crazy strong themes. Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah. But then, you know, there's a certain point in the movie where like the whole theater is bawling. They're just crying because it's, you know, it takes place during World War II, and you know, there's obvious themes in that that are sad. And the thing is, like, even though she really didn't notice the score that much, it's still present.
Yep.
It's still doing its job. And I think that's one of the things with Ghostbusters 2 is that the score stands out a little bit too much.
Yep. Yep.
Boop, 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 boop. It's just too much. And I don't know how Bernstein was able to make that work, that sort of cartoony Ghostbusters theme work.
Yep.
Maybe every time I think of that theme, the Ghostbusters theme from Bernstein, I always imagine them walking down the stairs or up the stairs from the library. I guess up the stairs from the library.
Yeah.
And it and it almost feels like it's going in step with their feet.
Yeah.
So maybe the rhythm's not distracting because you're you know, they're going along with the pictures. It's not like a counter melody or something.
Yeah.
It just goes with the action. But that Ghostbusters theme, it's so good.
Yeah.
And that's not my kind of music. I'm not into like comedic scores that are played up like for comedic, but man.
But it's not like hokey. It's not like,
no, I don't know. That's what I'm saying. I don't know how he does it.
Yeah, it's like, it's kind of jazzy, and it kind of just has a good movement to it. It feels light.
Yeah.
But yeah, it does.
It's so close to Otis in Superman the movie, where Otis has that like trombone theme that John Williams does.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's played for comedic effect, but it's got that same sort of bouncy sort of, I don't know. I don't know musical terms, but it's still kind of comedic bouncy. But for some reason, Ghostbusters doesn't sound silly. Maybe I'm just used to it. I don't know.
But it's not over the top. And then I think adding in, because that song also has the Otis March, not it's like it's all over that soundtrack. But so it just kind of has, there's just this undercurrent of eeriness, and it comes in really strong, or it's pulled back a little bit, but just it's really balanced.
Yeah.
And that's where I hope Rob Simonson, I think it's pronounced Simonson. I hope he finds that balance. And what I do like is that little bit that we saw. It's one little line does strike that, where it has a little taste of the ghost, but like the Ray Parker Jr. Ghostbusters song, and it has that the little ascending notes at the end kind of hits that like dissonant last note that does feel very Bernstein-esque. So
I guarantee you,
it feels like it's going to be that.
If you're a composer and this is your first franchise film, like this is a big deal.
Yeah.
You're gonna look at the other 3 movies. You're gonna look at the scores. You're gonna see what works, what doesn't work. You're gonna see what they did, what those composers brought to the table, why they made the choices they made. I feel like obviously Bernstein's is the most successful score. What is it? Ghostbusters Answer the Call. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, the 2016.
I don't remember the score to that at all, but I mean, that's fine because it doesn't stand out, or you know, like Ghostbusters 2. But you know, composer's gonna look at it, and they're gonna make choices based on what works and what doesn't. Well, so I think we're okay. I really think Jason Reitman obviously is looking at.
Yes.
You know, there's no Ghostbusters 2 score in any of the trailers.
No.
So
and to me, like Jason Reitman, and where it really kind of struck me that he's truly like a big fan was when he's on stage at Hasbro and they gave him like his own like
Oh yeah, I saw that.
he was just like he was really taken aback by it. And
Right.
and at the Ghostbusters Fan Fest they did like last year, like he was really engaged with the fans. Like it just seemed like he's very, which is kind of surprising because it's like it's your dad's thing and whatever. But so it's unique in that he like has that much of a strong connection to it, and he seems to have that much of a strong, and he really cares about the mythology, so to speak.
Well, I recently met Nathan Hamill, Mark Hamill's son,
Mhm.
and he is huge into Star Wars.
Mm.
And I think if you're growing up, I'm assuming that Mark Hamill and Ivan Reitman ended up with every single Star Wars and Ghostbusters toy available.
True. Yeah.
And so when that's so much in your life, you become a fan.
Yeah.
So, it's, you get inundated with the stuff when you're a kid. So, I mean, geez Louise, can you imagine? I'm assuming he's got every single Ghostbuster toy ever.
Oh, I'm sure.
So how could you not be a fan?
When you were on set, like as a kid, like he was in Ghostbusters too. He's like,
Yeah,
that says you're full of crap. That's Jason Reitman. So like he's like,
it's in his DNA.
Yeah, yeah.
And I mean, listen, he's obviously a fan of the franchise.
Yeah,
and I don't think he'll do anything to steer it wrong.
Yeah.
I think we're in good hands.
Yeah.
I think we're in good hands when it comes to Ghostbusters. I recently, not to name drop, but a couple months back, I had a long conversation with Gareth Edwards,
mm-hmm.
the director of 2014 Godzilla and then Rogue One.
Yep.
And all he wanted to do was talk about Star Wars 77. And it's funny because you watch Rogue One and you can see the amount of detail and love that went into that.
Yep.
Especially for a movie that takes place,
Yep.
20 minutes before Star Wars.
Yeah.
You can see that everything put in there was meant what came from a place of love. Yep. And that they didn't want to screw it up. Yep. They wanted to make sure it was the best thing out there. So I'm sure with Jason Reitman, I mean, he doesn't want to mess it up. I feel like for him, though, the advantage he does have is that the 2016 Ghostbusters exists.
Yep.
I feel like if he did this movie in 2016, it would be under a microscope.
Yeah,
like crazy.
Yeah.
Everyone, but because let's say the 2016 Ghostbusters really wasn't met with, open arms, and it really didn't perform like they wanted to, and the fans didn't kind of warm up to it as much as, they could have. That kind of makes a little sort of weird Ghostbusters over here. Yep. So now when you do another one, it's like, well, it can't be worse than that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it, luckily for him, that's that. But I think it would be really cool if he did do some sort of nod to that existing. I'm
curious because you have had conversations with Michael Giacchino. Did you ask him about like how he approached doing, because he did the Rogue One score, right?
Right.
So did you ever ask him like how he I know you wanted to get him on your show because you do a podcast like on the score.
What's funny is we talk about other stuff. We talk about Star Wars and pretty much everything but film music.
Yeah. You gotta have
every once in a while I'll slip it in there. Like I'll say, oh, that's like he has a big poster of the old Errol Flynn Robin Hood in his house, and I'm like, oh, that's Korngold, right? He's like, yeah. So I'll bring up score stuff every now and then, but I'm afraid to talk to him about it. But one of the things I love, and if anybody wants to listen to, so a couple things. First thing, I have a Patreon page which is at Casino Skunk. Go to casinoskunk.com. There's a link. It's $1 to sign up. If you're interested in the scores to Star Wars, I have one episode from a series that I do on there called Lightsabers and Leitmotifs. The first episode is free for everybody. So you don't even have to sign up for the Patreon to listen to that. It's my favorite series that I do on my Patreon show, where I break down all the themes to Star Wars.
Yeah.
So when Rogue One came around, Giacchino dropped in a theme that hadn't been heard since Star Wars 77. And in 1977, they didn't have the Imperial March, the one that everybody knows, you know.
They had that.
That is the Death Star theme.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
And so, God, so go listen to this episode. It would make me so happy if you did. It's like 28 minutes long. You get to hear a lot of Star Wars themes. So that's the lightsaber, or that's the Death Star motif. The dun, da, da, da. So what happens is they just show that every time you see the Death Star.
Yeah.
But in Star Wars, you only see the Death Star for like that long a time. You only see it for like 3 seconds.
Yeah.
So Giacchino did this whole other theme that lends itself to like, it's mostly like Krennic's theme.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a longer theme, but it ends with da 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 da. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
But the theme, the Imperial theme that is played throughout 77 Star Wars goes dun 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 dun.
Yeah.
That's all over Star Wars.
Yep.
Williams never used it again. Giacchino dropped it in the introduction of Darth Vader in Rogue One.
Yeah.
So a composer who's a really big fan of the franchise that they're going into can really do a lot to honor what came before. Yeah. And so I can see, I think it would be great if maybe this score for the new Ghostbusters doesn't necessarily have the themes from Elmer Bernstein until like classic Ghostbusters show up.
That'd be cool. Yeah.
It's that same thing as when you first see the Millennium Falcon and you hear the Rebel fanfare is when you see the Ghostbuster, if you see the original Ghostbuster actors in their suits with their proton packs and they play the you're gonna lose it. You're gonna cry. You're gonna have tears coming out of your eyes.
Yep.
Just thinking about it, how great is that gonna be? So I feel like he doesn't need to include the Ghostbusters theme throughout, but I feel like to honor the originals, that would be great.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I don't know what their role is in the movie. It looks like that one of the kids in the movie is Spengler's kid.
But it seems,
and this, and then so good places to drop that piano theme. It won't take much.
No, it won't.
You could even play it on strings. It doesn't have to be the piano, but I feel like that's the way to go.
Yeah.
Don't make this a new Ghostbusters score.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
But when the old stuff happens, which is funny because like when Han Solo shows up in The Force Awakens, Han Solo doesn't have a theme. He didn't have a theme until the movie Solo came out after The Force Awakens. So they just Williams played the Star Wars theme.
Yeah.
And but it hits you. That music, it hits you, and you don't want to use it, throughout the whole movie
because it'll lose its impact.
It'll lose its impact. You need to hit it right at the right spots. That's one of the things that David Arnold did when he took over for the Bond series. Mm-hmm. He says, I'll only use the full Bond theme when he's doing something very Bondy, when it's the height of ridiculousness. Mm-hmm. And so he'll use that Bond theme when like Bond torpedoes his jet ski underwater, and while he's underwater he straightens his tie. That's when you play the Bond theme, So it's you just got to pick your spots. There's something called a spotting session, and a spotting session is when a director and composer sit down and watch a dry cut of the movie without any music.
Yeah.
And then they pick the spots where they want the music to come in. The director says what kind of emotions he wants. The composer says ideas of what they want to do during those scenes. So music's not only important, it's also important when it's not being played.
Yeah.
You want to use it sparingly. You want to make sure that, it's not front to back music. There's a composer that I don't like, and I'm not going to name names, but I used to believe that his score to The Lion King was good until I rewatched Lion King recently. And the music just plays nonstop, and it's so it combats the visuals. It's so in your face. It's so over the top. And so by the time Simba runs back to be back home to go save his people, the loud music is just as loud as it's been the whole time. And it's just like you lose that impact. You need to take time to just like not have music. Because you start getting used to it. You start, not caring about it.
Did you pass on his masterclass?
I did not. I did not look at his masterclass. What's funny is,
for those that don't know, Ralph hates Hans Zimmer. Hates him. It's fine. We can talk about it, Ralph. To be honest.
Can I tell you something? Could I tell you something on a positive note?
Sure, absolutely.
With James Bond moving to November, that gives us plenty of time to change the composer. Get David Arnold back.
Yes, that's right. Maybe now there'll be scheduling conflicts or something like that.
The first Bond movie I saw was in '89. I saw the Living Daylights on cable, and then I was pretty much hooked. And then I missed License to Kill. Because it had already come out on theaters. So the first Bond movie I saw in theaters was GoldenEye. And ever since then, I've owned every single Bond score. As soon as they come out, it's one I get. Same with Star Wars. I get it the day it comes out, and I have a complete collection of Bond scores. Dude, I just can't get No Time to Die. I can't stand Hans Zimmer, and it's
with him. And I know one of my favorite things that happened in that whole situation. And anybody that knows you, it's maybe the third thing out of the list of things about Ralph, like he hates Hans Zimmer. But I think you tweeted it or something, or like if anybody
I did a thread.
if anybody asks me or whatever about Hans Zimmer and Bond, I'm unfollowing you or whatever it was. It was just
right.
I just cracked up laughing.
Right. I try to keep I have sort of I think 3 years ago, a New Year's resolution I did was to be positive on Twitter. Never post anything negative. If I do, it's a joke. Like it's obviously a funny thing. But that day that was announced, I have a whole thread where I'm just going off on Hans Zimmer. The reason I don't really care for him is that this started in the 90s. He has or had a company called Media Ventures. And so Media Ventures was a company that was filled with composers. It was a bunch of composers. And so what he would do is months before a movie would come out, he would write about 12 minutes of music for the movie, which isn't a score. A score is when you write music to picture. So he wrote, I guess you would say a soundtrack. Anyway, he would write like 12 minutes of themes and stuff, and then they would go shoot the movie. And when it's done being edited, he would give that 12 minutes of music to this Media Ventures group full of composers. They would take those themes and then score the picture using those themes. And so if you look at any movie that Hans Zimmer's done, in the bottom of the credits, it says additional music by, and there'll be like 4 or 5 people. And he gets the big credit at the front. Music by Hans Zimmer. Even though 5 other people scored the movie. And that drives me nuts. One of the guys, I'll tell you one thing though, one of the guys that came out of Media Ventures is one of the guys I wanted to do the score for Ghostbusters Afterlife. And that's John Powell. John Powell's fantastic composer, left Media Ventures, went and did his whole thing, has his own sounds, been nominated for Academy Awards for like How to Train Your Dragon. He does a lot of animated features and stuff. He did the score to Evolution.
Yes.
Which is a movie I really like. I really like Evolution. I really love the score. It's my favorite John Powell score.
It was designed to be a Ghostbusters for the year 2000 or whatever.
And I was going to tell you this earlier, is if they open up this cross-dimensional rift, I would love to see David Duchovny, Orlando Jones, Sean William Scott, and Julianne Moore in Ghostbusters outfits.
Okay.
As a Ghostbusters from a different dimension, like a different timeline.
That'd be cool. I'd be full. I liked Evolution. It was as a Ghostbusters fan that was just starving for Ghostbusters content. Like,
right,
the best thing I'm gonna get. Like, even the promotional campaign with the 3-eyed smiley face, like everything was so like trying to be the 2000 equivalent of Ghostbusters.
Right. And John Powell's score to that is amazing. It's my favorite of his scores. And then he's gone on to do Solo. He did Solo, where he also put in the 1977 Imperial theme in Solo. So you'll hear that theme when you see the range troopers climbing on the side of the train.
Ah, okay. All right.
So there's, when it comes to scores, there's ways to honor without being like obvious.
Overhead. Like,
yeah. So you hope for something where it's like the fans are going to love it and get all, misty-eyed, but the regular people aren't going to really notice. But
that's where you want to thread that needle, which I think they will do. So hopefully they do that.
I think it'll be fine.
All right. Well, I think that's a good place to cap off this conversation and our first Geek Dad Live video. Ralph, and again, I got to give credit to Colleen, who, as I was like putting this all together, as I was making the thumbnail for this, like last minute, she was like, "Why isn't Geek Dad Live?" I was like, "Oh my God, yes!"
What was funny was I posted up there. I grabbed your art and I made a dimensions for the Twitter.
Yeah.
And I was going to put live on it. I'm like, why isn't it Geek Dad Live? Because you said it was going to be Geek Pod Life.
Yeah,
I think when you said it was going to be
a podcast too or something. But I was like, no, Geek Dad. Yeah, Colleen said the same thing. I was like, why not Geek Dad Live? And I was like, oh my God, why have I not thought of that? Right
this is the first episode, you said?
This is episode 1 of Geek Dad Live.
That's awesome. Thanks for having me.
Yes, I'm thank you for coming on. Regardless of what the theme would be, I knew if I did one of these first ones, I was going to ask you to do it because I think it's just tradition.
Right.
But this was perfect. The stars aligned perfectly to kind of be a thing that I want to talk about that was in your wheelhouse of expertise.
Yeah.
So, Ralph, thank you so much for coming on the show to talk about scores, to talk about film scores, and talk about the new Ghostbusters Afterlife film score. And of course, we always talk about a lot of things. But where can people find you if they want to, find out what you do? Because you mentioned a lot of things you put out there, but where can they actually go find these things?
You can find everything at casinoskunk.com. Follow me down below there. It's at Casino Skunk. And then do me a favor, like seriously, go to patreon.com/casinoskunk, listen to Lightsabers and Leitmotifs, part 1. It's completely free. If you like it, I've done all the other Star Wars scores, except for I still owe my listeners Solo and Rise of Skywalker. But I love that series. I think you'll dig it. Please.
I put a testimonial up here from John Norton. Lightsabers and Leitmotifs really is fantastic, Ralph. So
thanks, John. I love it. I actually listen to those. Even though I did them, I listen to them. I love it. I love it so much. Casinoskunk.com.
There you go. All right. Well, that will do it for this first episode of Geek Dad Life. If you like what we do on this channel, hit like, hit subscribe, and click on that bell icon to be notified when the latest episode of Geek Dad Life drops. All right, that'll do it for this time. Hasta luego, and goodbye.
Bye. Dun, dun, dun.